Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Deleted. I, 24 female, am dating a 25 male, an almost unreasonably picky eater, and I'm pretty much at the end of my rope. I, 24 female, met Jake, 25 male, about 2 years ago while out and bonding over the fact that we graduated from the same college. We went on a couple of dates and were getting to know each other when he let me know that he had more or less eaten pizza every day for the past 3 years. I didn't love the idea, but I thought he was pretty cool besides that and figured it was just a little quirk he had, that he was exaggerating and that the dude just really liked pizza. He was not. He eats it every single day without fail. Each time we go out, it has to be pizza. And after a few fights here and there, it's been pretty much an unspoken understanding that when we go out, we will be getting pizza. Also, it's not just any pizza. He's even picky about his pizza. He'll make us go to a few totally inconvenient pizza places that require a subway ride trip and are far from where either of us lives. We live in New York City, and I'm sure most of you know you pretty much can't pass a single block without stumbling upon a pizza place, so it's not like these places are our only options. I can name all the foods he eats on both my hands. All are simple carbohydrates, but pizza is his absolute favorite. For the others, he'll just settle to eat if pizza is not immediately available. No vegetables, no fruit, no protein whatsoever. He absolutely refuses to even try them, despite never trying most of them before. I've tried to push his boundaries gently, but it always fails. And the one time we went somewhere I wanted to go to, he pouted the entire time and ordered French fries. He's promised to be more open and that this pizza thing won't be forever, but that it's working for him now, whatever that means. He claims to be high functioning on the spectrum, which honestly, I'm not totally convinced of, but that's another story. And that's why he can only eat pizza. This made me more cautious of discussing my issues with his diet because I know how easily he can claim I'm insensitive to his disability and that it's something he truly cannot help, and he has. I do firmly believe he has some sort of avoidant eating disorder that is clearly not debatable. I've more or less dropped it because it always starts a fight, but the resentment is still there. Something I wasn't totally sold on when we first met, but convinced myself was a small quirk, is turning into genuine disgust and bitterness towards him and his unwillingness. I guess he thought I got over it since I stopped bringing it up as much, and he informed me of his plan to stop eating pizza every day after 10,000 consecutive days of eating pizza. To do the math, that's around 2045, factoring in the days he's already gained. He's going to document it on his Instagram story and show everybody his streak. He seemed so proud of this idea and commitment, and I'm genuinely stunned. He thinks this is just some interesting, cute little tidbit about him that people will support because he's such an offbeat guy. I could not believe what I was hearing. Taking away the inconvenience of always having to eat where he wants to eat, not being able to cook for us, and me being bored stupid over eating the same crap every time, it's simply not healthy. He claims because he's outwardly fit, it's not a big deal, but I disagree. I was sort of putting up with the whole pizza thing at first, but upon this announcement, I don't know if I can deal with this much longer. It's inconvenient, it's unhealthy, and in my opinion, it's selfish. Everybody you go out to eat with has to cater to a single person's self-imposed dietary restrictions. He's going to Germany with his family for vacation, and he's already mapped out the available pizza places he can eat at. German pizza over authentic German cuisine? It very well could be something he can't help, and he has claimed to be getting help through therapy with it, but I'm seeing no progress. And honestly, I don't think he wants to and only says he's working on it to placate me. He talks about having a future with me and having kids, and there's no way I would even consider that if he continues to commit to this streak for fear of setting a bad example for our children's eating habits. We don't live together and only see each other about 3 times a week, and the pizza thing is driving me crazy. He proposed moving in together and I immediately shot that down for the time being. If I can barely handle it now, I know living together would only amplify it. I've tried gently coaxing. I've tried showing him studies of how his diet affects his life and sets back the fitness goals he's always complaining about never reaching. I've tried fighting and anger only to be told I'm an a-hole because I need to accept him as he is and that he can't help it. Maybe he's right. I have to accept it or I have to move on, and at this point, I truly don't think I can. He's great in almost every other way except for this. I feel guilty for letting it go on this long when it bothered me from the very beginning, but I can't change that now. Do I concede and let him eat whatever he wants as he's a grown man? Should I draw this boundary and continue to push him to push himself and give an ultimatum? Or do I just throw in the towel at this point and move on with my life? Never thought I'd get so stressed out over pizza for F's sake. Ugh. Well, OP, I agree with you. Ugh. I mean, going out and only eating pizza, that can't be fun, and after 3 years, it has to get boring. Now, maybe he does have a condition, and it might not that he's high functioning and in the spectrum. It might be that he just has a RFID, which from what I understand is a fairly new condition that's been discovered, and it's called avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. Now, here's the thing about it. It does have a treatment. However, you can only get treated if you want to get over it. If you don't want to do anything about it and want to have a 10,000 day streak on Instagram, which let's be honest, nobody would really care about, then that's a different issue. Now, regarding your relationship, OP, I agree with all of the things that give you pause. What kind of an example would this be in the future for your kids? A 3-year-old is not gonna understand watching his dad eating a pizza when he has to eat rice and potatoes or, I don't know, something like that, healthy kid food. And his refusal to do anything about it and telling you to just accept it shows to me that he's kinda selfish, that he doesn't really worry or doesn't care about what you feel and think. In that case, this would be a deal breaker to me and it's time to move on. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? How would you try to go about it? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Invin Chrono says, you do not concede. You say, look, I don't want to effing date Papa John. Get some help so we can both eat normal things. Because you're unhealthy and I'm not going to date someone who will die of diabetes before he's 40. Get him into therapy stat. He has untreated mental illness. It's not about accepting anything. Disciple of Drum says, I mean, unless it's fine with you, this seems like a deal breaker for most people. The dude is preventing you from going on cool dates that include eating at fancy or fun restaurants. Also, if you want to be with someone you might eventually marry, this dude is going to die way sooner than his partner if he continues eating like this. Along the way, he's going to have a lot of health issues to deal with and drain your and his bank account with medical bills. Also, it's effing weird. He's a child in a man's body. Lady Ugzalut says, I'd be more pissed at his sense of entitlement that you simply give up any nice eating experience as a date with him, to the point of him openly sulking when he has to eat a potato at a restaurant you want to try. Where's the give and take here? People on the spectrum do like routine, and they also need to challenge themselves within reason. If he's unwilling to do that, especially in the absence of an actual diagnosis, I wouldn't want to continue. Because that has nothing to do with being on the spectrum and more so speaks to his values. It est, his wants come first, always. Rafi Chirafi says, I listened to a really interesting podcast about avoidant food disorder. It made me realize some people are not simply choosing to be picky, they literally cannot help it. The way they described it was, if you are locked in a room with food you don't like, a picky person will eventually eat it, whereas the person with avoidant disorder would die. Additional information from OP's comments. From what he said, he's been only eating pizza for pretty much 3 years. I honestly just didn't take it seriously at first and thought it was an exaggeration. And no, he's not overweight at all. Perfectly average weight. He works out most days of the week and his body is average because despite working out all the time, the pizza is holding him back from reaching his fitness goals. I think that's his justification as to why this is okay. Now, he's usually down to do fun or new things, excluding food. He is very stubborn though. If somebody mentions something he disagrees with regarding him or his opinions, he gets very defensive. Whether it's in the workplace, among friends, or among strangers, he digs his heels in and has trouble seeing others' perspectives. One of the things that holds me back from moving on from him is that I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I understand addiction and how hard it can be to overcome. I'm sober now, and it has been a while, but it was a really hard journey and he didn't give up on me. But truth be told, I was in a very vulnerable place in my life when we met. It clouded my judgment, and I thought he would be as good as I could ever get. I know now that's not true. I've been checked out of this relationship for a long time, but this whole streak thing made me realize I'm going to have to call it. Also, I'm afraid to say it, but it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. He's mentioned going out to eat with my family before, and I refuse to because I don't want us all at a nice restaurant while he's either only eating the bread basket or asking for a kid's menu. Sad face. But I know that this is much more than him just being immature or childlike. It's something that requires outside help. I will never understand what he's going through, but he simply refuses to get any help at all. Now, about his goal, I don't think he's actually willing to give it up after a consecutive amount of days. I think it's just an excuse he's hiding behind. His reasoning is because then it'll be 10,000 days. But what he fails to realize is that nobody finds that impressive or cool or quirky. It just comes off as childish and kind of gross. I think the whole making it to 10,000 days thing is just some arbitrary excuse he's sold himself so that he can continue to eat this way and not feel bad about it. Now, this is too much information, but in our intimacy, he actually has no problem going down on me. That is sort of what makes me think he's exaggerated this, cause I don't think I taste like pizza. Surely, someone who's happy and willing to do oral can work on themselves up to eating a carrot, right? Or maybe I just don't understand his disorder properly. Finally, one of my biggest takeaways is that if we did end up together and have children together, how would this affect him? I brought this up to him and he said he would be strict, that it was necessary for them to eat healthily and with a lot of variety. I asked how he expected our kids to ever take him seriously on that if the kids have a plate of broccoli in front of them for dinner while watching him happily chomp down on takeout pizza. Thank you, that's my point. He said he would explain how he couldn't help it to them. Whether he can help it or not does not change the fact that it will affect our children and their eating habits. Alright, we got varied responses from the community, some people telling OP that this was just done, others referencing ARFID, and OP gave us a lot more context in which she tells us that she's basically checked out of the relationship. So now let's move on to the update to see what OP did next. But of course before that, here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now let's move on with that update. This happened last night. This update is way more dramatic and unpleasant than I had hoped, but it is what it is. I read what you all wrote and I appreciate all the comments left for me. Despite a few outlandish ones, they were all very helpful and reaffirmed my beliefs that I'm not being nitpicky about this issue. I decided to give it one last shot at broaching this issue with him and letting him know how serious it was to me. He needed help, and so long as I saw that he was trying, that was all I asked for. We were out to dinner. I'm sure you can all guess what we had to eat. When he brought up his trip to Germany and how he would have to find a supermarket stat in order to stock up on frozen pizzas and keep his streak going. I was hoping to do it after the trip so as not to ruin his good time, but I figured now was as good a time as any. So I told him that maybe he doesn't have to continue the streak. Maybe he can just try new German cuisine without worrying about having to get pizza into his diet the entire time. Then I asked him if he had talked with his therapist about his avoidant eating, and he said, "No way, I have people depending on me to continue this streak. I don't want to let them down." That's when I said that I don't think anybody really cares about his streak as much as he does, and frankly, I'm worried about him. This is really unhealthy and it's consuming his life. He's about to go on this incredible trip to Germany, and the forefront of his mind is to get to a grocery store to pick up frozen pizzas. I think he really needs to discuss this with his therapist again. We had a back and forth the rest of our meal about his diet and how it was affecting our relationship. He doesn't think it's a problem because his health is fine. Keep in mind he's only 25, and I was a busybody and needed to mind my own business. I let him know that this is my business because it affects me. We can only go out to eat one thing. We can never have a meal at home together, and if we did decide to move forth and have children, the example he is setting is awful. We let the issue go for the rest of dinner, not wanting to escalate it, and ate in silence. The plan after was to go back to his place where I would spend the night. The entire trip home, he was silent, but very obviously simmering while I wished I had just gone home. I should have gone home. I guess I didn't expect the crap storm that waited when I got to his place. He flipped. He began screaming about how he was so sick of me bringing this up, how it was his life and how I couldn't control what he did or ate. I told him I cared about him and his health and wanted him to recognize what he was doing was not healthy. I ultimately agreed that he was right. I couldn't control what he did or what he ate, but he couldn't expect that I would stick around and watch and enable him like I had been doing in the past. It escalated from there, how he had been there for me the entire time when I was an active alcoholic and through my relapses. I could not and still cannot dispute that. He was. I guess the only difference between him and me is that I wanted to change. I acknowledged the issue and knew I could not go on like this any longer. Obviously though, it is much quicker to see the downfall of someone suffering from alcoholism versus someone who is suffering from this kind of eating disorder. One spirals much faster than the other, so I was able to recognize it much quicker. I told him I was going to leave because I couldn't deal with this anymore. We kept fighting and fighting, and he let me know he would expose me. He has a blog and he told me he would write one about what it was like to live with an alcoholic and use my name. He would be sharing it on Facebook. I completely panicked. I cried and begged that he didn't use my most vulnerable moments against me. He told me if I walked out, he absolutely would. That was all I needed to hear. He was going to blackmail me. I think this snapped me awake to realize this isn't love. If I leave, he's going to humiliate me on the internet to get back at me. That absolutely isn't love. So I left. I don't have many possessions there, but he can keep them all for all I care. He emailed me a draft of the post. I blocked him on everything else, and the subject was last chance. Oh, F him. Let him post it. F it. I can't control other people. I can only control myself and how I react. I deactivated all my social media and I'm ready to move on with my life. It hurts that somebody I trusted so much would explicitly broadcast my past, but it's a learning lesson. Thank you all for reading. Opie's edit. I'm a total hothead and need to relax. I'm crazy defensive right now and wondering if I did the right thing. I apologize for lashing out. Also, thank you to the commenter who gave me the idea to write a post with the following. Quote, X and I broke up recently, and during his breakup, he threatened to make a post on his blog detailing a very vulnerable time in my life. His post will likely include embarrassing intimate details of my alcoholism, from which I have proudly recovered, mixed in with lies and who knows what else. I encourage you not to read it, and if you do, to consider the context he is posting it in the first place. I think I'll just copy-paste it. Well, OP, this is a positive update. I mean, it's not happy because obvious he sucks and what he's trying to threaten you with is absolutely a scummy move, but you're rid of him. So now I would actually celebrate and go to a restaurant and eat whatever I want without having to worry about it being pizza. So good for you, OP, for not bending the knee to him trying to blackmail you. So take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Really Salty Shellback. Cable company told me I don't have cable. This happened around the year 2000. I had just purchased a house and met the previous owners while they were moving out. They were really nice people and we had a friendly conversation about the house. The previous owner mentioned that the cable bill was paid up until the end of the month, about 3 more weeks, and that he had already turned in his cable box, but the cable signal should still be active till the end of the month. I told him thanks and we let him finish packing up. We moved in the following week, and when I hooked up the cable to my TV, I got all the basic cable channels, which was all I was planning on getting anyway. At the end of the month, I called the cable company and asked to sign up for basic cable. The sales rep told me that there was going to be a $100 hookup fee. I told them that the previous owner had left his account active and that I was literally watching cable as we spoke. So there should not need to be a hookup fee because the cable was already hooked up. They just needed to start billing me for basic cable. The rep then clicked on her keyboard and told me that her data showed that the address I was at did not have cable and that they would need to send out a crew to activate the signal. I told her that I was not paying $100 for a hookup fee and said never mind, I don't want cable. I waited another month, I still had cable, and called the cable company back to ask what it would cost to get basic cable. A different operator from before said it would cost something like $30 a month and a $100 hookup fee. I asked why the $100 hookup fee. She said that it was because my address does not currently have cable. I told her, never mind, I don't want cable unless they waive the hookup fee. She said she was not authorized to waive the fee. I just thanked her and hung up. 4 years later, we still had cable, but we ended up moving out of state for work. Super big smiley face. Well, OP, I guess you never had cable. Wink wink. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.